Oftentimes, within the adaptation of a piece of media, it is hard to interpret the true nature of a character. This is typically due to cuts or things that may not be getting fully expressed within the adaptation, and ReZero is no exception to this. As within the ReZero anime, there are many characters whose true nature and true character is a bit toned down, and that's exactly what today's video is going to be about, going over the ReZero characters whose true nature is a lot more, demeaning and different than what the anime actually portrays. If you're into this type of content and you enjoy ReZero, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And anyways, let's just get right into the video. Make sure you check out my membership if you want to help support me directly. The link will be in the description below. A little side note, as you can see, the background of my videos changed. I'm in a new setup. I moved back into college, so I'm trying to adjust things and figure out what looks best. So let me know in the comments below if you like it or if you want me back standing up. But anyways, let's just get right into the vid. The first character that I want to talk about today is a character that is not only toned down by the anime, but is toned down by the fandom and subjugated and pushed into a certain box when their character is really much more than that, and they have a very interesting backstory and upbringing and honestly cool dynamic with Subaru, and that character is going to be Felix. When it comes to Felix, a lot of people dumb him down and put him as just, a cute little silly character that you'll find in anime, when really his character is so much more than that, and he is honestly quite a twisted character and quite a twisted person. To a degree, it's kind of understandable how this turned out, especially from the anime, as within the anime, he's a bit one-dimensional, not horrible or bad. We get some insight, but in comparison to the novel, it is much more toned down and we see a lot less. We get a much more broad and full expression of Felix's character and his mindset and his feelings and relationship towards Subaru. There is truly no better and more prominent example of all this than within Arc 3 when Felix was supposed to be healing Subaru's Monogate. This scene right here, if you may remember, in which Felix leverages some sort of mind control over Subaru, and on top of this attempts to put something akin to a monobomb inside of him secretly without any sort of instruction from Krush and completely on his own accord. Luckily, Rem was there and was able to prevent this from happening before it even started and joined in on the healing, but it just goes to show the links of this character that he is going to. All of this just in case Subaru ends up trying something against Krush, and furthermore, this can be emphasized his obsession with Krush in EX Volume 1, where we figure out why Felix dresses and acts the way he does, and it is not because of his own accord or his own sexual preferences, but is rather because of Krush herself. From a young age, Krush wanted to be the Duke of her family, but due to her being a girl, she had always felt that this dream and this aspiration was going to be impossible. However, Felix sacrificed himself and his manliness in order for Krush to take that side of him. So Felix essentially opted to wear dresses while Krush would opt to wear suits. That's why within season 1, before Krush loses her memories, we see her often dressing within suits, and why when she does lose them within season 2 and is wearing a dress at times, it really hurts Felix down to his core, even though the anime may not play it up as much as that. Felix's whole backstory within EX Volume 1 and what goes on there and between Krush and Fourier Lagunica and everybody there is honestly amazing. If there was an EX novel I recommend you check out, I recommend that one for its story itself. Without getting into spoilers, Felix has an extremely messed up family history too. On top of all this, I want to get to the more serious aspect of Felix's character, that being that his dynamic with Subaru and his harshness on Subaru, as we could see it a bit within the anime. It is not played up to as much as it is within the light novels, as between Arc 3 and Arc 4, Felix is much more negative and connotative towards Subaru than he has ever portrayed being within the anime. As said, a lot of this can be attributed to the fact that Felix sees a lot of parallels within himself within Subaru, and on top of this, with Felix being a healer and one of the strongest healers within the nation, he has a general distaste for how much Subaru is willing to sacrifice himself and sacrifice giving up pain and things as such. The fact Subaru is often so willing to just openly give up his life is morally against whatever Felix believes as a healer. To build on this dynamic, going back to Arc 3, and more specifically when Felix goes to place that monobomb inside of Subaru, this is very parallel to Subaru's own relationship with Emilia and Felix's relationship with Krush. This within itself is so reflective of Subaru's own actions within Arc 3, in which Subaru acts upon his own accord without the help or asking of Emilia, and decides to do treacherous acts just for her sake, even though she never asked for him to do this to begin with. Felix proceeds to do the same exact thing, except with Krush, and while demeaning Subaru for acting the way he did, justifies his own actions for her safety. On top of this, Felix and Subaru are two characters within ReZero who both lost the person that they conform their identity to the most, that being Krush and Rem. Felix is a portrayal of what Subaru would be like, I feel, if he attached more of his identity to Rem, as Krush's loss of identity was a loss of identity for Felix himself, as most of his life, his aspirations, his goals, and his dreams were all for the sake of Krush. The way he dresses, the way he acts, the way he talks, all of his plans, All of this was for the sake of Crush and the person she was. So for that person to be erased from history, all his goals, aspirations, inspirations, everything as such, it is almost within a sense erasing Felix himself from history, in which he lost his own identity. It takes away his sense of purpose and his sense of self. And as I previously said earlier, for him to see things such as her wear dresses or her break the oath that she made because she can't remember, it crushes him, which end up leading to comments like this right here within Arc 5, which within itself is very reflective and indicative of Subaru. And seeing the way that these two are able to handle their problems and go about the problems of gluttony is very interesting and contrasting. So yeah, they're both characters who are very interesting and contrasting in many, many ways. Honestly, one of my favorite characters within all of ReZero that is heavily downplayed. And yes, I know someone is going to mention in the comments below that Tappei originally actually planned for Felix to be one of the final antagonists within ReZero, but he inevitably ended up changing his mind for whatever reason, and most likely because of the presence of Crush's character, and I think he just found a better story there than with whatever he had originally planned, with Felix being the final antagonist. So that about does it for Felix's character. What other characters are much more demeaning and different within the ReZero light novel? Well, the main one on top of this is going to be Puck. Puck is a much more morally questionable character and morally gray character than the ReZero anime portrays him. Well, I mean, I know the anime portrays him as a bit crazy sometimes, but most of the time it is downplayed, such as within Season 2 and Arc 4 and other arcs. For starters, I think the most prominent example of this is a scene that was actually cut from the ReZero anime, and that is going to be Subaru's outburst scene from the Royal Capital arc, when he essentially freaks out within the Royal Capital and makes Emilia look like a fool and gets kicked out. This scene was actually heavily different within the light novel, and we realized this whole entire scene was actually a ploy by Roswaal and Puck and was heavily instigated by them to make Subaru look like an idiot. In the novels, Roswaal and Puck essentially use Subaru as a ploy to show the strengths of the Emilia camp, in which Roswaal essentially just rage baits Subaru. There's really no other way to put it. Subaru lashes out, Roswaal shoots a fireball at Subaru, Puck goes to defend it, in which Puck reveals that he himself is the beast of the end and somebody who could just destroy the world if he really wanted to. I would also emphasize this and go on to say that Puck's relationship with Emilia is a bit toxic, to say the least. Almost that akin to an overbearing father and somebody who is very emotionally controlling. This is much more noticeable when you look into their contract and the aspects that are a part of it, such as how Emilia wasn't allowed to ask about his relationship with Beatrice, go towards any body of water, look inside of a mirror. He had to be the one who chose her hairstyle and what she wore every morning. She had to talk to lesser spirits every morning and night, so on and so on. You get the point. It is something that was a bit controlling and a bit overbearing is what I am getting at. That's just one small aspect of his character. I would say the main problem with Puck and the main issue that he is portraying is his hypocrisy towards Subaru within Arc 3, and honestly how he tortures Subaru. Puck is often very critical of Subaru's actions and his inability to actually go forth and save Emilia, while he in turn just sits there and doesn't really do anything as all of this goes down. And in turn, the only thing he does is destroy the world when she inevitably passes. More specifically, the specific loop where all of this is really gross and really bad is the loop where Subaru tells Emilia about Return by Death, and the way Puck treats Subaru after this is very gross. He essentially straight up just tortures Subaru very sadistically. This is why Emilia getting out of her contract with Puck and, breaking that contract, or, just getting away from him in general, was such a good pivotal turning moment for her character. Puck limited her own identity and stunted her mental growth with the amount of restrictions he put on top of her. It is akin to like a father who did not let their child go out at all when they are young, and Emilia finally getting away from Puck, and the scenes where she is actually able to look at her own reflection and look herself within the mirror and fully express and be herself and go through her own problems and arguments within Subaru just is amazing for her character growth, as her memories are no longer hidden from her and she is finally able to confront these problems directly without Puck being there. And speaking of Emilia, she is a character who, within the opposite sense of Puck and Felix, where they are often portrayed as more cutesy and whimsical when they are in turn actually not very good people, is the opposite. Somebody who, is still portrayed as cutesy and whimsical, but she is much more defending of Subaru within the light novels than she is within the anime, specifically within the earlier arcs, such as Arc 2, and it makes Subaru's obsession with her and reasoning for, letting her live as his sole purpose much more understandable within the novels. One of the worst cuts within the anime in which this is portrayed is the fourth loop of the second arc of ReZero, in which Rem goes to the village instead of Subaru and is the one who ends up getting inflicted with the curse and ends up essentially passing away from, the sickness instead of Subaru. This leads to her dying from exhaustion, and Ram and Roswaal, freaking out at Subaru, and Beatrice being the only one who really defends Subaru. She has her little standoff with Roswaal, and we see Subaru inevitably run to the cliff to go jump off, and Emilia kind of just stands there idly within the anime. She doesn't really say anything. Within the novels, though, this was portrayed much differently, as she actually fights back against Roswaal and Ram and avidly defends Subaru and stands for his name and, stands for him as a person. Whereas in the anime, like I said, she kind of just stands there defensively, not really saying anything, and almost feeling like she's doubting Subaru within a sense, not really believing him. This scene being cut is honestly so frustrating, because I feel like if all the way back 10 years ago or whatever, when season 1 aired, if this scene was there, it would have made a lot more people understanding to why Subaru was so in love with Emilia. And, Emilia's character as a whole, it would have had much more people defending her, and she wouldn't have been slandered as much as she did throughout the years when being compared to Rem. Also, it adds to that fact that Emilia is still the only character within ReZero that, no matter what, within any loop, has never gone out of her way to harm Subaru. Another interesting cut for her character was one of the unthinkable presences within season 2, in which this one was cut where she found out that Rem actually offed Subaru within arc 2. Her reaction to this was slapping Roswaal across the face, freaking out on Rem, and essentially running away. Anime kind of does do Emilia dirty. I mean, this is just much more reflective and indicative of the actual person and character she is, and why Tappe is so fond of her, when the anime kind of portrays her as a bit of a dunderhead and a klutz at time, which is a little bit frustrating. Another character I feel the anime portrays kind of meh is Priscilla, as within the anime, the Priscilla is seen much more eviler and, like a negative antagonistic character, where in the novels she still is like this, but there's clearly another side and facet to her character. Anyways, Emilia, Puck, and Felix are the main ones I wanted to talk about, especially Felix, because they really change his character heavily, and he gets a lot of slander and a lot of negative connotations carried with him, and a lot of people misinterpreting his character when he is actually quite a good character and holds a lot to him. But anyways, yeah, that about does it for the video. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I'm back. I had to take a bit of a break because, like I said, I'm in college, but anyways, peace.